Hello there, so welcome to another episode of DevOps with George. Hope you're staying well and happy, staying hydrated. Today we're going to be talking about serverless CI/CD. So without any further ado, let's get into it. Let's look at some of the items we'll cover in this video. First, we'll look at some fundamental concepts of serverless. We'll take a deep dive into Google Cloud Build and look at some key features that makes Google Cloud Build stand out from the rest. Next, we'll look at the Cloud Build configuration file, understanding the various components of the Cloud Build configuration file and what each of these items means. After that, we're going to look at how to run your builds on Google Cloud Build today. In particular, we're going to be exploring the three main ways in which you can run your build on Google Cloud Build today, which is either using the Cloud Build triggers, the Cloud Build CLI, or using the Cloud Build REST APIs. After this, we're going to look at how you can automate your builds. In this step, we're going to be setting up a full CI/CD pipeline in GitHub style that triggers when code is pushed to a GitHub repository. And finally, we're going to look at how we can optimize our build pipeline in terms of speed and also to optimize for security. What is serverless? There are different ways to describe what serverless means, but some key attributes that stand out in any serverless platform from the point of a cloud user as follows. No provisioning. The setup and configurations of servers on networks is the responsibility of the cloud provider. Already provisioned resources are made available to the user in a working state, ready for use. No scaling. The scale-up or scale-down of resources is automatically determined by the demand of the workloads that runs on it, and usually happens without human involvement. No patching or upgrading. Software and security updates are inherently the responsibility of the cloud provider. Now, all of this reduces the responsibility of the cloud user, and in most cases, all you need to do is just bring your code. The term serverless taken literally suggests the absence of servers, but as we have seen, this is untrue. Servers are still used, but just an abstraction of the cloud user. So what is Cloud Build? Cloud Build is a serverless service that takes your source code and executes builds on Google Cloud based on a set of specifications, producing artifacts such as Docker images and Java archives in the process. These specifications are provided in the build config file. The build config file is a YAML or JSON-based file that consists of a series of steps that Cloud Build executes during your build. Each build step runs on a separate Docker container. But then you may ask, how does each step communicate with the next, or how is information shared between steps? All steps in your build runs on a local Docker network called the Cloud Build network. This way, the containers can communicate with one another and also share data. Some distinctive features of Cloud Build that stand out include, first, the top-level Cloud Console. Cloud Build Console contains tons of features built with ease of use in mind. Next is the artifacts. The outcome of most build pipelines is the production of releasable artifacts such as images or other artifacts. Cloud Build provides a way to preview all of these artifacts produced as a result of your build process. File path triggers. This means you can initiate a code build not just from your local machine or your remote code repository, but also from Google Cloud Storage and any other file-based location. REST API support. Cloud Build has a fully REST API. This means that you can connect to and perform actions on Cloud Build remotely using its API. Beautiful UI and logs. The Cloud Build log has been well thought out and implemented, so you're able to view and capture most of the information you need about your build in a single view, or as Google likes to say, a single pane of glass. So here I am logged into my Google Cloud console, and the first thing I'm going to do is to enable the Google Cloud API. So make sure you've selected the right project, and then we're just going to go ahead and search for Cloud Build. And then we're going to enable the Google Cloud Build API. So now we have the Google Cloud API enabled, and as you can see here, it says API enabled. Just gonna click on manage, and that takes us to the API usage analytics page where you can see how our usage of the API has been. And since we haven't done anything yet, you can see there's no use yet. So here I have a basic Node.js application, which we're going to be using for this demo. That's a very basic Node.js application that serves a static HTML file, collects a user's email and full name, and then shows them a success page. So I'm just going to start the application now on the browser, and then we're going to take a look at what the application has to offer. So we have our application running. Now I'm just going to open my web browser back and go to localhost 3000. And we have our application running. So it's just a basic application that takes in an email address with a name, and on submitting it just shows you the confirmation page. So thank you for subscribing. Okay, so this is a sample Node.js application we're going to be setting up with Google Cloud Build. And in the root of my application directory, you can see I have a Cloud Build YAML file here. So the Cloud Build YAML file is the build config file that Cloud Build will be using to run our build. So the build config file comprises of several instructions or steps that tells Google Cloud how to run our build. And the syntax or the format for the build config file is as follows. As you can see, it starts with the steps keyword. It tells Cloud Build that what follows is going to be the set of steps that we want to run for our build. The first thing we have here is the name. So the name here takes a Cloud Builder image. This can be any publicly available Docker image or Google Cloud builders that are customized and built by the Google Cloud community. So the Google Cloud community has cloud builders you can use in your build configuration file for gcloud, Docker, and for several other common tools. So the next thing we have is the ID. So the ID is a unique identifier that you can use to identify that particular build step on Google Cloud Build. So when we get to this phase where you see the Google Cloud Build logs, the ID is what is used to identify what a particular step is. So you can see we have this here set to install packages. I just like to set my Google Cloud Build IDs as with an uppercase and underscore notation. Then we have the entry point. So every build image has an entry point, either a default entry point or one that's customized and set by you. So in this case, if you don't want to use the image default entry point, you can set your own entry point. So you can see I've set an entry point here for the Cloud Builder image as npm. Next, we have the timeout. The timeout is the maximum amount of time that's allowed for that build step to run. If you do not set the timeout, then that build step can run as long as it needs to and may end up taking the entire time of the build until the build itself times out. Next, you have the args. The args takes a list of arguments that are passed on to your entry point. If you do not specify an entry point or the image does not have a default entry point, usually the first argument that you provide to the args list is used as the entry point. So the entry point has multiple syntax or formats in which you can specify it, either using a simple list, just as I have here, where you just specify each command in a string. Another syntax that's popular is where you have this list broken out into multiple lines for much more clarity, and it allows for easy customization of the argument list. Then you have the expanded list where you don't use arrays and you just have all the commands listed out with hyphens at the beginning. We'll look at this other notation sometimes later as we go along. And finally, you have the breakout syntax where you can just specify a shell script that is passed on to your entry point and is run when that build step runs. Next, you have the env key, which is used to specify environment variables that you want to have available when the build runs. The typical syntax is to just have a list, and then you have a key value PS with a key set equal to the value. All of these environment variables are going to be made available when this build runs. After this, we have the wait for. So the wait for is used to specify an order in which you want your steps to run. If you do not specify the wait for ordering, then the steps are going to run synchronously from top to bottom. So here you can see I've specified the wait for. And these items here are the IDs of the steps I want to run before this build image step is run. So as you can see here, we have the run test and we have the build app. So this says that the run test has to complete and the build app step has to complete before the build image step is completed. So you can use this to further customize how your cloud build steps are run. And then you have the images key, which is just to specify some artifacts that should be pushed to Google Cloud Artifact Registry as an outcome of this build process. It is optional. If you don't specify it, then you either need to use the Docker build step to push your images to Google Cloud Artifact if you want that done. If you don't do that, then you can specify the image key here with a list of artifacts that you want to be pushed to Google Cloud Artifact Registry as a result of the build run. And then finally, you have here the options key used to specify additional configuration that can be used to customize your build. As you can see here, I've specified a machine type and a disk size in gigabyte. So this says I'll prefer my build to be run in a machine with up to 50 gigabyte of size available and also machine type of 8 CPUs. Google Cloud has machine types up to 32 CPUs available for use. But something to keep in mind is that the higher the amount of CPU you specify for your build, the slower it's going to take for your build to get started. So there are multiple other instructions you can add to your build configuration files. Here we just have the basics. In the description, I'm going to leave a link to a reference for the Google Cloud build file. Thank you guys for watching. In the next video, we're going to be running our build, starting with building our application using the Google Cloud Build CLI. After that, we're going to take it a step further by setting up our GitHub style CI/CD pipeline that's going to build our image and push it to the Google Cloud Artifact Registry. And then after that, deploying it to a serverless Google Cloud service known as Google Cloud Run. We're going to look at strategies for optimizing our build, speeding it up. We're also going to look at optimizing for security and a lot more. Thank you guys for watching. Hit the like and subscribe button so you're notified when the next video drops. Until then, drink water and smile. What? Drink coffee and smile. See you next time.